Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Summon Undead.
Brains. This is a third level necromancy from Touch Cauldron of Everything, one of the myriad summon spells that'll have almost identical text where you summon a thing, it lasts an hour, you get a ghostly putrid or skeletal one in this case, you command it verbally, no action required by you, just say go do a thing, you command it with, to go do stuff, it goes and does stuff. I can't technically read this whole description, but we've done this a lot.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Go watch the other summon videos. But I must say that was the most blah 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 spell description you have done for what I think is one of the better summon spells.
Sure. You get three modes. You get ghostly, putrid, or skeletal, and those three modes give you a variety of differences. So like, ghostly gets a hover speed, putrid gets festering aura, ghostly gets incorporeal passage, skeletal gets grave bolt, putrid gets rotting claw. Like they have a bunch of differences between them. I think it definitely makes it feel some of the most interesting, some of the most iconic to their respective fields. So definitely touches ghostly gets three main things. It's the hover speed, it gets incorporeal passage, so the spirit can move through creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. If it ends its turn inside one, it's shunted to the nearest unoccupied space, taking a d10 for every 5 feet. It's typical incorporeal movement. And then you also get deadly touch, which is a melee weapon attack. Your spell attack modifier reach 5 feet, hits for a d8 plus 3, and then the creature makes a whiz save or is frightened until the end of the target's next turn, which is pretty sick, because they can just keep repeatedly fear things over and over and over again, especially if you upcast this to 4th level and it gets 2 attacks each, which is pretty spicy, because you can fear multiple things with the ghostly touch. That's pretty good. Skeletons, I think, are the worst of the bunch by a pretty large amount. They get a ranged attack roll, and it's 2d4 plus 3 plus spell level. That's basically it. So like it feels like a callback to Anime Dead skeletons having short bows, and so they just get like great bolts, which is lame. If you're gonna do that, just do Anime Dead. It's cooler.
And it feels to me like a lot of these other summon spells, where it's just okay, you summon a thing, it does some damage. The other two actually do more stuff, and that's what I want out of these.
Yeah, Putrid gives you Festering Aura, which is any creature other than you within 5 feet of it makes a con save. Each turner is poisoned until the start of their next turn, which is pretty cool. So it gives you like this very Ghast is what I think it's Ghasts get their Putrid auras with their Festering stench running around doing those things. And they have Rotting Claws too, which is another. If the target is poisoned, it makes a con save or is paralyzed. So that's definitely like Ghoul Ghast kind of paralysis claw rending stuff that we're used to from the monster manual. Basically, the modes are Skeleton, Archer, Ghost, or Ghast, and those are all fine modes, I think. Which one speaks to you the most? Is it Ghast, the Putrid, or the Ghostly?
Putrid?
I
like the word Putrid, and I like what this does. Let's see.
Putrid has really high potential.
It puts the poison condition on your enemies, and that's not super impressive. But the Rotting Claw, I think, is pretty good.
I mean, you say not that impressive, but it's everything within 5 feet of it, except you, which means you can be, bunker down with this. But this is just a persistent AoE poison effect at its worst. And that's pretty solid. If it poisons 3 things, you're really happy with that outcome, as long as it's also making attack rolls, right? And now, the things that are poisoned, which is definitely what it's targeting, it's going to try and paralyze them, which is also, if you ever paralyze something with this, it's debilitating. It has a couple steps you have to jump through, granted, and it definitely encourages you, which I think is really cool. It encourages you to poison things in other ways. It encourages you to play around with other poison effects, which is pretty cool, because then you can get Rotting Claws to trigger more often and actually occur more often. And especially if you're at casting to the 4th level and it's making 2 attacks, you can paralyze 2 things, which is really good, and then everything crits them, and that's pretty sweet.
That's true. It just says if the target is poisoned. It doesn't have to be poisoned by the Festering Aura. That's neat. Yeah.
Actually makes Ray of Sickness less atrocious. Still atrocious, but less atrocious. Actually, Ray of Sickness might take your concentration, which makes one of the reasons why it's atrocious. But yeah, I think that undead summoning is a pretty well-established entity in 5th edition. And I don't know if I'm in the majority, but I am one that actually really likes the base level of Anime Dead. The base level of Undead Summoning, I think the game is pretty good. I wish it was cheaper. This being the same level to it is a really, really big bummer to me. I would have loved to see a 1st level version of this that gave you, like, monsters with downside. I'd love to have seen shambling zombies with a 1st level summon spell. I'd love to see skeletons that, have a tiny little upside, but are just a little bit of hit points you're running around commanding. That's what the game, I think, honestly really needs, is a low-tier summon to bring the Necromancer fantasy to life. This is just kind of a side grade.
if you just scaled them down for like a first level spell, I think the little side effects here would be too powerful.
I'd probably gate them at level, right? If you use this a third level spell,
Yeah.
they get this effect. If you go to fifth level spell, they get this effect, right? Have
Yeah,
better
but the whole
scaling for
point
it.
of these summon spells is to make things less complicated.
That's true. Then give me Summon Lesser Undead, and that can be
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get the skeleton, zombie, and other cheap little. It can even just be those two. Why not?
No, I agree with
Crawling
you.
Claw.
I want something to look for lower level, but I also want all this crap here.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So you are you one of the people that will take this over Anime Dead? You think if you were wanting to do the Necromancer fantasy?
Probably, because I mean, I'm almost never gonna use the skeletons, but I like the idea of summoning ghosts. That's fun.
That's
And
definitely a really cool niche factor that this gets. Ghosts are normally very hard to get, and this gives you them.
and I like the whole putrid. I like the whole putrid package. One question about incorporeal passage. Now, if it ends its turn inside objects, it's shunted and takes D10 force damage. Now, if it ends its turn inside a creature, the creature doesn't take any damage, right?
No.
That's too bad.
You can't throw this in and just 1d10 damage things for it movement. No, unfortunately not. The incorporeal passage, I think, is pretty neat. I think that this spell has more applications out of combat than most of the summon spells do, because having something that can go through walls is genuinely useful. You can have it just be like, yeah, go through the door and go through the window and unlock the door.
Yeah,
it can
or
do that.
just go grab those keys or something, because then the keys also turn incorporeal, correct? If it's holding them? No. Oh, well,
I mean, not rules as written, I don't think.
Yeah.
It has incorporeal
Okay,
passage, so the spirit can move through things, but if the spirit picks stuff up, I don't think those things are incorporeal.
Okay, you're probably right. Yeah. All right. Well, still, it's got.
I mean, it can still hit things and deal physical damage, so you can have it break a window. Like you can get, you can have it finagle some interesting environments. You can have it do some neat little infiltration stuff specifically, which I think is a really big upsell to a lot of these summon spells. If you can get it to have real utility in an environment out of combat, and it's just always good to cast in combat, you're really happy with that. This being a warlock and a wizard spell is great on both those lists. Warlocks because they always do their max cast, that's always a 5th level cast for them. Wizards because this is just, more necromancer support for the necromancers out there that didn't want to do the Animate Dead bookkeeping, because they really is, you need like a dedicated journal for your Animate Dead.
Yeah.
Like this body's animated as this right now. It's tracked as, you got like a billion different, this spell's maintaining these amounts of undead. This says you don't have to worry about that. You get one that makes multi-attack, and it's pretty good. I still am more of a fan of Animate Dead, but
I don't know. I always like more options, and even I say I probably would never take the skeletons, but I mean they got range. That's something.
2d4 plus 3 plus necrotic spell level and necrotic damage and multi-attack is really good.
Yeah.
Just having a battery of skeleton just firing off 2 bolts around. It's like we talked about Summon Celestial. We said the angel one is really boring, but it is really good. And it's just making 2d8 radiant longbow shots around. And this is doing functionally the same thing. And that's going to be entirely fine.
Yeah, these all are good options.
I think definitely the coolest. I think you can build whole characters around the guests. I think the Putrid Rotting Claw stuff, if you want to build a character that does one spell over and over again and has ways to empower that spell, this can do that. You can play the Poisoner type that uses 6th level casts of Summon Undead, 4th level casts of Summon Undead to have a thing going around with the objective of paralyze, 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 and you just one it up all the time. That's a pretty cool build direction to try out. You can do that on both Warlocks and Wizards. Probably a little bit better on Wizards because they can actually 6th level cast this, whereas Warlocks can't upcast it because of the way their upper tier stuff works. It's still something that I think is going to be really fun to mess around with. It's still something I'd recommend trying out. And even if you don't necessarily full commit to it, it gives you enough with its aura that it's still going to be able to occasionally get a paralyze off, and that's pretty solid. The whole package, I think, is great. I don't know if I'm ever doing Grave Bolt, but it's great.
Yeah, well, we've done enough of these summon spells. I guess if you want any more in depth about these kinds of spells, we've done a ton of them. Go find them. Ready for a rating?
Sure, I think this is like the rest of 4 out of 5. I don't think it's game breaking. It's definitely not as abusable as Animate Dead or Create Undead, but it is a perfectly reasonable Necromancer summon spell that can do the thing. This one where Conjure Elemental or Summon Elemental seem to bum you out a little bit more. This one to me feels like I can already get ghasts, I can already get zombies, I can get skeletons. This feels kind of like the life has been suctioned out of it. It feels like you get ghosts with this. That's new, but the rest of it, I was like, oh, I can already get that somewhere else, and that's kind of a bummer to me. But for the people that don't do the enormous amount of bookkeeping, don't want to have the enormous burden that is handling their battery of archers with +2 to hit, this is probably a perfectly reasonable direction to go, and it's going to feel fine to use at almost every table.
I'm coming at this from a different perspective. I'm coming at it from you're coming at it from other undead spells. I'm coming at it from other summon spells, and I've been pretty down on a lot of them. This one finally speaks to me,
Fair.
and for that, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
Nice.
Thank you, summon spell. You've finally made me happy.
One that Bob really wants to cast.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was Summon Undead. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.